Shri Shashi Tharoor ji.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. I'm honoured, really, to stand before this House and to speak on behalf of my party on a matter of great pride for Indians everywhere in the world, the success of our lunar mission, Chandrayaan-3, and according to the topic you've given us in the revised list of business, success of Chandrayaan-3 mission and other achievements of our nation in the space sector. I think my respected friend Sri Rajnath Singh treated us to a lecture on a slightly different subject. But on August 23rd, Mr. Speaker, we scripted history as our unmanned moon mission's lander module made a flawless soft landing, making us only the fourth country to achieve this feat and the first to reach the uncharted south pole of Earth's only natural satellite, the moon. It is fitting, sir, that as you proposed, we observe August 23rd as National Space Day in future. How far we have come since the late 1950s, when a classic photograph by Henri Cartier-Bresson showed Indian rocket parts being transported on a bullock cart. Let me take you back, sir, nonetheless, to when our nation's scientists, led by Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, began to develop the contours of India's nascent space program in the early 1960s. Back then, the coastal village of Thumba, in the outskirts of Thiruvananthapuram, was identified as an ideal location, given its latitude and natural geological features, to allow for rocket launches and allied research. Imagine, friends in this House, a sleepy village with golden beaches and palm-fringed coconut trees, populated largely by an overwhelmingly Catholic community of fisherfolk. The catch, however, was that the community of scientists had identified a piece of an area of land, which housed in Thumba the St. Mary Magdalene Church and the residence of the bishop himself, Peter Bernard Pereira, his own official residence. Now, in any other community or any other part of the world, even, the matter might have been put to rest right there. After all, the idea, the thought of displacing an active spiritual establishment would certainly have evoked outrage and fury, especially in today's India. But in this relatively obscure part of India near Thiruvananthapuram, where a decision of national importance and scientific progress presented itself, the community chose to make a remarkably patriotic choice, a choice for development and progress. When initial conversations with politicians and bureaucrats made little headway, something special happened. One day, when Bishop Pereira was sitting in his little office in the church, he heard a knock on the door. He said, "Who is this?" And a man in a white suit came and said, "I am Dr. Vikram Sarabhai." Dr. Sarabhai explained the importance of this area to India's scientific research in space. The bishop understood the proposed mission of the scientists, and he told Dr. Sarabhai, "Come to my church on the following Sunday." So during the Sunday service, Dr. Sarabhai was there, and Bishop Pereira presented a proposition before the congregation. "My children," he said, "I have a famous scientist with me who wants our church and the place I live in for the work of space science research. Dear children," he said, "science seeks truth by reasoning. In one way, science and spiritualism seek the same divine blessings for doing good for the people. My children, can we give God's abode for a scientific mission?" The answer from the congregation was quite literally a resounding Amen. The church and the bishop's house, as well as other neighbouring inhabited areas, were handed over without protest to Dr. Sarabhai and his team. Thus was established in 1962 the Thumba Equatorial Rocket Launching Station, or TERLS, which would later be renamed Vikram Sarabhai Space Centre after the death of the legendary Dr. Sarabhai 9 years later. A year after TRLS was established, India launched its first two-stage rocket, our first foray into space, from Thiruvananthapuram. As our late President, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, who was part of the original launch team in 1963, and he went on to work from the church building himself. He wrote later, looking back at this remarkable episode, "Today among us, Professor Vikram Sarabhai is not there, Reverend Dr. Bernard Peter Pereira is not there, but those who are responsible for the creation and make the flower and blossom will themselves be a different kind of flower, as described in the Bhagavad Gita," he said. And he quotes the Gita, "See the flower, how generously it distributes perfume and honey. It gives to all, gives freely of its love. When its work is done, it falls away quietly. Try to be like the flower, unassuming despite all its qualities." That is what a lot of ISRO's foundations have been, sir. Unassuming, but with the power to change the world. One of the world's oldest and most ambitious, it arose from the physical research laboratory established in Ahmedabad in 1947, the year of our independence and the brutal partition with Pakistan. Our visionary first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, then created the Indian National Committee for Space Research, or INCOSPA, marking our country's official entry into space exploration. This committee was set up on the recommendation of the Scientific Advisory Committee to the Cabinet for the promotion and exploration of space and its utilization for peaceful purposes, a committee led by the legendary Homi Bhabha. Then, in 1962, as we've seen, TRLS was established. On 15th August 1969, our 22nd Independence Day, under the trusted guidance of Vikram Sarabhai, INCOSPAR and TRLS became the Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO giving Indian space a developmental boost. There was a tragic setback, as I mentioned, when Dr. Sarabhai died suddenly of a heart attack at the age of just 52. Dr. Satish Dhawan, the head of the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, was invited by then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi to lead the organization because she knew that the vision and legacy of Vikram Sarabhai could only be fulfilled by someone like Dhawan. He accepted the invitation, though on condition that the headquarters be shifted to Bangalore, and guided ISRO as a leader who is still admired by many. In July of 1979, sir, our first satellite launch vehicle failed, and Mr. Dhawan, an exemplary leader, took responsibility for it. He gave a statement saying, "Dear friends, we have failed today. I want to support my technologists, my scientists, my staff, so that next year they succeed." The very next year, they did succeed. This is ISRO's history. Every setback became a stepping stone to greater success. And so we Indians are proud of our space program for good reason. Since then, ISRO has undertaken missions to the moon, Chandrayaan-1, 2 and 3, and the failure of 2 became a stepping stone to the success of 3, to Mars, the Mangalyaan Mars Orbiter mission, and we have created our own launch vehicles and satellites. Moreover, of course, as the Speaker has said, India launched the Solar Observatory Aditya L1 this month and aims to put 2 or 3 people into low Earth orbits by the end of this year, to emulate the legendary Rakesh Sharma, who orbited the planet on a Soviet spacecraft in 1984. Notably, Indian space research is the only program which has been a civilian program from the very beginning. We are focused on the development angle, like the use of space for rural development, weather forecasting and communication, in addition to high-end research. And this, sir, is just the beginning. India's space program is set literally to skyrocket. Experts predict that India could account for at least 10% of the global space economy in the next decade, up sharply from 2% currently. India's space program bolsters our development, having made important contributions even in seemingly unrelated areas such as disaster management, education, healthcare, agriculture, fisheries and urban planning. Moreover, it serves India's global diplomacy as well, sir, enhancing our credibility and influence. Those who once scoffed at the idea that a poor developing country aspired to send rockets into space must concede that India is now a technological force to be reckoned with in the world.
नमस्कार, मैं हूं मानक गुप्ता। अगर आपको हमारा ये वीडियो पसंद आया हो तो इसे लाइक और शेयर जरूर करें और हां, हमें सब्सक्राइब और फॉलो करना ना भूलें ताकि आप देश और दुनिया की कोई खबर मिस ना करें। तो जुड़े रहिए हमारे साथ और देखते रहिए News24।